Victoria, by the grace of God, of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Ireland, Queen Defender of the Faith, etc. To all whom these presents shall come greetings. We have instituted and created for us, our heirs and successors, a new naval and military decoration that shall consist of a Maltese cross, underneath which an escroll bearing this inscription: For Valour.
At the height of the battle, a trumpeter in the front line falls wounded. From the rear, Neville House of the New South Wales Army Medical Corps gallops forward under heavy fire, calmly picks up the wounded man and carries him to shelter. Neville House became the first Australian to win the Victoria Cross. His investiture here at Sydney's Victoria Barracks was attended by two other VC winners, men who'd won their medals half a century earlier during the Indian Mutiny. Alfred Heathcote, an Englishman for his actions during the siege of Delhi, and a Scot, John Patton, the hero of Lucknow. The scenes of horror on the relief of Lucknow, Patton would later write, I cannot even now dwell upon. Our joy turned us into hysterical women. This tradition is, of course, part of the mystique, part of the reason why the Victoria Cross is, well, quite simply, unique. A near worthless piece of metal still cast from cannon captured during the 19th century, capable of changing hands for hundreds of thousands of dollars. Why?
But the people of that period had a certain cachet because the Queen herself had named the medal after her and had named it as being the highest award you could get for gallantry. But it's then developed a life of its own, I think.
The Victoria Cross is an outstanding motivator to other men. It's just the fact that there's one man amidst all this madness who hasn't lost it, who's just keeping himself calm and is doing what he's meant to do.
I think in many ways we honour ourselves by awarding a medal like that, because we're saying personal courage in the support of others is our greatest ideal. You can forget things about like, fame or celebrity or fortune. It's a high ideal, and that's the recognition of it.
Of the more than 1,300 Victoria Crosses to have been awarded, 96 went to Australians, and recently the first Victoria Cross for Australia was added to the Victoria Cross story. Here at the Australian War Memorial are 60 Victoria Crosses, 60 amazing stories about ordinary men who performed extraordinary deeds. But we're going to begin our journey with the story of a medal that isn't here, because it's still hanging on the chest of the man who received it. Edward Ned Kenner was described as being game as a bull ant. He proved he was in Wewak in New Guinea on the 15th of May 1945.
You wake up in the jungle and say to yourself, well, how will it go today? And the next question's always, every soul answers to himself silently and hope that everything goes well. Because you never know.
On his own initiative and without orders, the London Gazette reported,
Private Kenner stood up in full view of the enemy less than 50 yards away and engaged the bunker, firing his Bren from the hip.
The Bren is more of a gun that you put it on automatic and you give them hell like that. But with a perfect shot, that should have been a perfect shot, to get it with the Bren was pretty hard. You couldn't do it.
The enemy machine gun immediately returned Private Kenner's fire with such accuracy that bullets actually passed between his arms and body. Undeterred, he continued to fire at the enemy until his magazine was exhausted. Private Kenner discarded his Bren gun and called for a rifle, and with amazing coolness, killed the gunner with his first round.
There were a lot of people around me, and I don't know what happened, but the opportunity came to shoot, and I shot. That's all.
A second automatic opened fire on Private Kenner from a different position. and another of the enemy immediately tried to move into the position behind the first machine gun. But Private Kenner remained standing and killed him with his next round.
Why did I do it? Well, I couldn't answer that very well, not truthfully, yeah. And I never tell a lie, so supposed to runs in the family a bit. It's Dickie Beacon. Said I couldn't see what was going on. If I stopped down, I couldn't see enough, and to get up was just the position you put it in. You go into these things when you're in them, and you're in them. That's it.
This may seem an unlikely place to continue our stories of courage under fire, self-sacrifice, astonishing heroism, but that's the point. That such stories so often start in a place like this is what makes them astonishing. 20 Australians went on to win VCs during the Second World War. 66 received theirs during the First World War, 53 on the Western Front. And one of those men was Alexander Buckley. On the last day of May 1918, he sent an embroidered postcard home. This was home. He wrote, "I don't think the war will last very long now. The fighting is so fierce and on such a large scale. Better days are in store for all of us. I feel sure that I will get through it all safely." The postcard probably arrived after the news that he'd been killed. And like 61,500 other Australians, A.H. Buckley, VC, wasn't coming home. Alex Buckley is buried in France, Plot 2, Row C, Grave 32. One of 1,405 war graves in the town where he fell, Perron. Just one amongst the dozens of cemeteries that are spread across old battlefields. Not far from Armatory is this beautiful little church, and in its shadow is a brass plaque of the AIF. It's the resting place of a man who did come back, a man who, with Buckley in an earlier action, stormed a German stronghold, shooting 4 and taking 22 prisoners, Arthur Hall, VC. Like Buckley, Arthur Hall had enlisted in Dubbo. The official war history noted that he was a good shot at kangaroo, and the unit diary said that perhaps of all the deeds that contributed to the day's success, none shone more conspicuously than the very fine work of Corporal Arthur Hall. So why did men like Arthur, from places so remote from the battlefields in which they served, volunteer? For Buckley and Hall, it may have been that their district was stirring with patriotic sentiment. On the 10th of October 1915, 35 men set off from this street on the Kui March, the first of the great recruiting marches of the First World War. After marching 3 weeks, 520 kilometres, 263 volunteers arrived at their destination, Sydney. Perhaps Buckley and Hall were moved by this show of patriotism, or maybe it was just the spirit of adventure. But more than that moves men to serve. After all, there were no Kui marches in the Second World War.